speaker now, our last speaker, Dr. Wei Wen. She is also a Foundation Doctor Year 1, working in acute medicine at Aberdeen Hospital in Scotland. So she graduated from the University of Aberdeen, and she is actively involved in MMI UK. So she has loads of tips for you to talk about your professional development and also finances, how to manage your money and really be successful throughout your medical career. So welcome, Dr. Wei Wen.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this talk. Let me just share my screen. Can you see that okay?
Yes, amazing.
Okay, so hello everyone, I'm Wei Wen, and as Amanda introduced me before, I'm an F1 currently working in Aberdeen Royal Infirmary in Acute Internal Medicine, and I've just recently graduated from the Uni of Aberdeen as well. So what I'm here to talk about today is sort of professional development and finances. So sort of what goes on after you graduate from medical school, or what you can prepare for in medical school for your future career. So I guess a big question is sort of what should I invest my time and money into? I think in medical school, the 5 or 6 years that we spend in, most of the time is used for studying, but I think it's quite important, as the previous speakers have spoken about, it's quite important to sort of have interest outside of medicine as well. You've got your whole life to sort of delve into medicine, but it's quite important to have a life outside of work and what you're studying. And something that I've noticed after starting work is that it's really quite hard to find a hobby and sort of find time to start working on something quite new. I guess you can, but there's just so many things in life going on when you're starting work, and it's quite good that if in medical school you've already had something that you're quite interested in that can help you de-stress, especially when you're just adjusting to starting work as well. And I guess one of the things is that some of us might know what we want to do already when we're in medical school, but some of us may have no clue even up to when you're working. And I think it's quite important to emphasize that it's okay to not know what you want to do. There's no deadline to sort of for that. And I guess the favorite question from consultants, from seniors, is what do you want to do when you're a grown-up doctor? And it's okay to say, I don't know. And as long as sort of you have an idea of what you like, you can take some time out to look into the things that interest you. So I guess quite a lot of my time in medical school was spent hiking. I spent quite a lot of time traveling around Scotland. And in Aberdeen, you get to do quite a lot of rural placements as well. So I sort of went up all the way up north, went to Wick, John O'Groats. I was in GP in a really small town out north, so I spent quite a lot of time hiking there as well. And other than that, I also spent quite a lot of my medical school time in MMI. I'm not in there just now, but it was quite a fun society to be in because I was quite interested in getting sort of, even though I'm in the UK studying, I was still quite interested in sort of the Malaysian healthcare system back at home and sort of helping medical students get used to the life in the UK. So that's what I spent quite a lot of my time in during medical school as well. So moving on, figuring out what you like. I guess you can do this during sort of your ward times, when you're in hospitals, when you're going for your placements. I know it's quite like there's quite a lot of things to do, it's quite a lot of time to study, but I think ward time is quite important to sort of figure out how it's actually like to work in a specialty like that. And once you get a bit more exposure, I guess you can figure out if you like it or not, and if something else interests you. And once you sort of know what you like, you can look into the training pathways, which is quite widely available on like internet. You can just Google it, and there's quite a lot of things that you can find. For example, like what June said before, things like MT training, there's quite a lot of websites that sort of list out the amount of things you need to prepare for your portfolios if you were to go into that specific training pathway. Things like getting your audits, your publications, your poster presentations, and teaching. And other than that, you can also sort of look into different research teams and projects, the things that you're interested in. So for example, I've got a friend that's really interested in surgery. So he sort of just bases his whole sort of projects on things that might help him progress in his surgical career, because he's interested in pediatric surgery, and that's something quite niche. So I guess building up your portfolio to something like that is quite important when you figure out that, oh, really want to do this. So you can invest your time into it as well. Another thing is that you can, on your placements, you'll get to know your seniors, get to know the consultants. So you can sort of know who to contact for further sort of projects or researchers. And if you're interested in teaching medical students, you can get in touch with your sort of university year leads to organize sort of teaching, maybe for like 3 months or so for the younger years. And I guess places to start can be joining societies for specialties that you're interested in. So things like maybe a gastro society, obs and gynae society, pediatrics. And through these societies, I find that it's quite a good step for networking as well, because when you have societies like this, it's quite common for you to have sort of talks from the surgeons in the hospital, other consultants, and once you sort of get to know them, it's quite easy for you to network, get to know how it's like to work as a doctor in that specific specialty. And I guess it's really quite useful for further career developments when you know a team, and then it's quite easy for you to get like research projects and things like that in that as well. And another thing you can put your money into is, for example, go for courses. There's quite a lot of, especially for surgery, because getting into a surgical training pathway is really quite difficult, and there's quite a lot of competition in it. So I guess things that can boost your portfolio can be things like suturing workshops, and I think Oxton is a thing in quite a lot of universities as well, and they are a society that runs quite a lot of workshops to sort of learn suturing, and that's quite a big boost, especially if you're into surgery as well. And then one other thing is that going for conferences, I guess either you can go as an attendee or you can have posters that you submit for presentations, because I think when you're joining as a medical student for conferences, it might be a bit difficult to sort of understand everything that's happening. I went for one for a poster presentation as a maybe year 3, and I probably didn't understand most of what the conference was about, but it's to sort of get a taste of what sort of working life is like in that specific specialty, and sort of have a bit more knowledge into it and see if you're actually interested in it. And I guess the next point is, I mentioned it quite a lot before, is on research. It's quite a big thing that especially UK program focuses on, is having quite a lot of research background, having quite a lot of publications and audits, QI projects. These things always help in your professional training. And I guess it's quite important to emphasize that if you don't get to it in medical school, if you don't have publication in medical school, it's fine, because you will have time in foundation years and in your future training programs to sort of get to do projects and publish them. And I think in medical school, there's quite a lot of things going on outside of school with your life, getting your life together. So, and everyone's in a different stage of life. So I guess when you do have friends that are very into it and you feel like you're not up to par with them, just know that it's okay to not, have like 1,000 publications by the time you publish, because everyone's in a different stage of life and everyone wants different things in their professional career. So maybe that person is going for more competitive training programs that requires a bit more background into it. So just know that you're not comparing other people, but sort of just look at yourself and know what you want before you sort of just jump into it because everyone else is doing it. I guess my tips for research, I don't really have much experience in research, but what I did was when I had opportunities to reach out to my supervisors during sort of my humanities project times and my electives, I sort of tried to tell them before doing a project that I would like to sort of get a poster out of this, or maybe get this published, because it's still quite a lot of work put into it, even though it's just your elective. So that's something that I'm working on just now. It's quite important for you to say if you want something published, for you to tell your supervisors, because sometimes you just don't know, and you just have to say, oh, I really want to get something published out of this project, and then they will sort of have an expectation for you, and they can get things moving a bit quicker as well. And things like audits and quality improvement projects, these are two things that are quite commonly done on wards and hospitals on very, very simple topics like appropriate referrals for abdominal x-rays, things like gentamicin, ototoxicity, and then prescribing errors and cardexes. But these are things that are quite easy to do when you're working, because once you sort of get to know how the ward works, how the working environment is, and how sort of the hospital system works, it's quite easy for you to sort of find records and audit on the different topics that you will want to do. Yeah, so the next point I'm going to talk about is finances. I think when we're in medical school, we quite easily get sort of stuck in our bubble of like the medical world, and we don't really, at least for me, I didn't really look into much outside of medicine until like maybe I was going to start working and start earning money, and then I thought, oh, better go and look into sort of what things I can do with my money once I start earning it. I think investments are quite a big thing coming on just now, especially with cryptocurrencies becoming very, very popular amongst probably people of our age or even younger. And it is quite worthwhile to look into it, because inflation, the real world things are happening. So putting your money in a bank is fine, but investments are something that you could start looking into it maybe a bit later on, maybe when you're working, to sort of know what to do with your money when you start earning it, into like maybe saving accounts. There's UK tax accounts like ISA accounts, and then investments or stock markets. There's also things like investment funds, index funds, sorry, or you want to invest in a specific company itself, that would be okay as well. But I think this is something that requires quite a lot of time to look into. So I spent maybe my holiday looking over this, and just know that it's okay if you're not doing it because everyone else is doing it. But if you do start doing it, please do read into it and know what you're getting into, because it's not a no risk sort of investment, and know what you're putting your money into, and do it with caution. And also always consider your own financial powers and your own budget as well, because in medical school, you can spend a lot of time of your money traveling, on your groceries, on different courses, and on memberships, on sort of question banks like PassMed. And I guess it's quite important to put your money away for certain things, and make sure that if you do start investing, you'll have enough money set away for yourself, and you'll have enough emergency funds for yourself before you go into it. And then the next thing that I want to talk about is just a brief, very, very brief run through about taxes and pension. I think this is something quite new for people like us, who, like for me at least, who didn't really start working until F1. It's not something to worry about until you sort of start working. But I guess just a brief run through of how it works in Scotland specifically. For foundation year doctors here, our pay sort of works by banding. So it's sort of depending on your rota, depending on how many hours you work during the week, how many antisocial hours you do. So things like night shifts or weekends. And if you do a bit more of those, your rota gets monitored, and then your banding for your pay might be bumped up to maybe 1.5 times of the basic pay, or double banded. But I guess in comparison to England, it's just a bit less time for us, I guess, especially if your job is sort of double banded, because is going to be really, really busy, and you'll be working a lot of nights, a lot of weekends, and you won't have that much time to even go and locum somewhere else as well. But that's how it works in Scotland. And for the taxes that we pay, for the first 10K that you earn, you are not taxed for that. And then after that, I think it's about 20% for our pay that's taxed. And then there's tax for national insurance as well. And then for pension, you pay a certain amount of your pay into your pension, and then the NHS itself also pays into that pension pot. You can opt in or opt out of it. I think it's quite good to have sort of this bank of money that you can go back to. I was thinking of opting out because I don't think I'm going to stay in the UK to work for longer term, but I mean, having some pounds in your pocket is quite good as well. So I decided to not opt out of it and just go for the pension tax. I think there's a specific age that you can take it on, maybe in 50s or 60s, I want to say. But yeah, I think it's something to sort of maybe start thinking about maybe when you start working, but it's really not much to worry about when you're still a student. Yeah, so I guess one message I really wanted to get across today is that in your professional career, there's always time for you to sort of take some time out to, like what the previous speaker said, to travel, to spend a bit more time with family at home, to look into your interests, have some research opportunities in another place. It's quite popular now, as well as June said before, to take foundation, have 3 years out. And in my job currently, there's quite a lot of clinical fellows that we have in acute medicine. And these people, after I asked them why they've sort of taken a year out, it's like they're either boosting up their portfolio for the training pathway that they want, or they just don't know what they want to do. So they are sort of choosing a few different specialties to work in for a few months to sort of see if they like it or not. So I think, especially as international students, for myself, I always thought that in my head, this is going to be a really quick, maybe like 10 years when I graduate. So I just need to keep going and going until I get to the final stages of my training. Then I can go home and work. But I guess thinking about it now, it's okay to take time out, because, if you're homesick and like you're not in a good mood, you can't really sort of focus on your work as well. So instead of pushing yourself, ask yourself if you need some time away from work, if you need some time to spend at home with your family, because it is fine and it is okay to take time out, to take a break in this journey that really sort of never really ends, even until your consultancy. You're sort of just continuing your studies, continuing training, and continuing your research into different things. So I guess you don't need to rush it, and you can take time away as much as you want, and then take time out for research opportunities that you like as well. Know that everyone is different, and don't compare yourself to people who are in a different stage of life, and ask yourself what you want to do, and sort of just you decide what your own professional career pathway is. So don't let anyone else sort of tell you what you're supposed to do. Like what my supervisor said when I first started foundation year, she said it's okay to not sort of start jumping onto projects once you're starting work, because it's really hard to juggle work and sort of adapting into working life. And especially for students like us who stay away from home, it's really quite hard to not see your family for the whole year and only see them maybe like 2 weeks in a whole year's time, in comparison to maybe the locals that get to see their family maybe in every few weeks or every few months. So yeah, know that it's okay to take your time throughout your training pathway. And that's me.
Amazing. Thank you, Dr. Wen. Dr. Wei Wen. I think that this was very, very important, because as medical students, everything is very competitive. Everything is very heavy on us, to be honest. And a medical career, it's long. It's very long. And as you mentioned, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And when we start medical school and we start each stage of our medical career, really foundation training, we're just bombarded with information, bombarded with things that we need to do. Not only medical school, which is already hard by itself, but also other extracurriculars, which take so much of your time. And you need to decide what you want, pretty much what you want, who you are as a person and what you want to pursue. And we always say, keep your mind quite open at the start. But I think the main sort of thing that we also spoke last weekend was about networking and getting to know, creating a support system. I think networking creates that sort of support that you will need as an international student away from home. As Dr. Wei Wen said that we don't see our families too often, and we need to create a support system where we live, friends that can help us feel at home, feeling at home even when you're not at home, making this new environment your comfort place. So pretty much that will help you create the support system that you need, but will also open your mind to things that you didn't know that you liked before, pathways that you didn't think that you were going to go for, and also opportunities that you didn't think about before and they didn't come across. So I think networking is quite important, because then you're going to take each step of the way, adapt it to your own reality. I think what you mentioned was very important about not comparing yourself to others. So everything that we're presenting here is to give you sort of a brief overview as how your medical career might go. You have the university, you have the social life, you have the NHS that you need to adapt to, all of these career pathways. And you also need to think about your career itself, your professional development and the money behind it. It's a lot to think about, but do not worry, because it is a long time that you're going to be spending as a medical student, as a medical professional. So you're going to have time for everything. And the important thing is just to plan and know who you are, what your values are, and then take each step at one time and join, create that support system by joining societies like CHIPS, because you create a community that can help, that people can help each other, can contribute towards the sort of same goal, which is be successful. And success is different for every other person. What success means to me is different from what it means to you. But by helping each other, we can all get there, if you know what I mean. Me reaching success in my life doesn't stop you from reaching success in your life. So that's why I think it's super important. This session is recorded, and if you want to go over all of that, I